Hey everyone, welcome back to the Product Pivot. I'm Santi and I'm here with my amazing co-host Megan. So this podcast is a little bit of an intro. We share real stories of product people in different levels of their career and how they made the pivot into product and get some insights and some good conversations going. So today we're very excited to have Trevor with us on the show, and I'm going to flip it over to him so he can give an introduction about himself.
Hey, I'm Trevor Acy. I offer fractional product management, hands-on inside of product engineering teams. Also do some product coaching and training for business leaders. And previously was a product manager up in Nashville, but moved home to Mississippi last year to help build the tech and startup ecosystem here.
Awesome. I'm super excited to talk to you today, Trevor. Thanks for taking the time to join the podcast with us. We always like to understand a little bit more about your journey into product management. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. I know y'all already had someone on who moved from marketing to product, which is the same thing I did, but hopefully it's a little bit different of a story. Like I mentioned, I was up in Nashville and previously was a director of marketing up there. And the company I was with was undergoing, what we called at the time big digital transformation. They were trying to move to empowered product teams, dedicated product squads, product trios, and they actually had Silicon Valley Product Group (SVPG) come and do some workshops. So Christian Adioti came, was a fantastic guy, and they thankfully had enough seats that they invited leaders from some of the other departments and disciplines there. So marketing leaders, I got a call, sales leaders, creative leaders, because they wanted everyone to understand the kind of transformation that they were trying to go through with the engineering department. And we got a copy of the book Inspire kind of before the workshop. And I'm reading through that and just thinking the entire time, like, why do we not do that? Like, of course, this is how we should be operating. One of my biggest, kind of complaints and pain points on the marketing side was we build these huge marketing campaigns and then launch them and cross our fingers and hope the leads came in afterwards, right? And then after sitting through the 3-day workshop, I remember going to our CTO and telling him like, hey, I think I'm in the wrong seat. Like, I think I'm supposed to be doing this product stuff, because we didn't have product managers like by title when I first joined that company. Like, it was kind of a new role. We were, like I said, changing to the product model. And I just said, I remember the phrase that I told him. I said, I'm tired of telling people that our product is so good. I want to go make our product better. And he was like, that's all we need. And we had a lot of conversations about my lack of a technical background. I'll share my age a little bit. I coded some HTML and C++ back in the 90s, and then really hadn't done any coding since then. But we talked through it. He's like, that's the beauty of the trio. You've got your engineering lead. Like, I don't need you to understand how to code, how to write code. He's like, I know y'all talk about this on the podcast a lot, right? I need you to be totally immersed in the customer, empathize with them, understand their problems. How do you figure out, the insights and the opportunities, and just rallying a team around solving those things. Trying to make a long story short, took about a year from that point to when I actually moved into a product role. Was waiting on building out the teams and there being, a role available. But I started meeting with the director of my business units, director of product. It would be a fantastic person to have on the show, by the way, Anna Schmuck. And yeah, for a year I met with her, tried to apply product principles as best I could in our marketing team until a role was available. And I actually took a demotion from, a director of marketing down to an IC product manager back in the squad.
I think there's a lot of things that you can take from that story, right? But one of the things that really stands out to me is that you were willing to apply product principles for a year outside of the product department because you were so inspired by that book that you read, right? And I think that's something a lot of aspiring PMs that come to us, they'll say like, how do I get into product? Like, how do I get in today? Like, where can I land my first role? And I think that's something that Santi and I have both done, right? We've both applied product principles in roles that are not product management.
Right.
And that's how we also broke into product. And that's also stories we've heard from other PMs that have broken. And so I feel like not having that title doesn't mean you can't be a product person. And I think that that's what stood out for me with your story. Santi, you kind of click with that too? Because I know we talked about this so much.
100%. As soon as he said that, I was like, okay, now we're going. Now we're talking. Absolutely. Another thing too, Meg, you nailed it. It's applying those product principles to the roles that they're in. And I've even taken it a step further with some folks that I kind of mentor on pivoting into product a little bit. I've even said to them, like, take the thing that you're working on right now, whatever project you have or the initiative or something, whether you're in marketing, what have you, and treat that thing like a product. A lot of the folks I'm talking to are doing courses on the side, or they're, reading and digging into product a little bit more. And they'll say, like, well, how can I, they all the roles want experience, but how do I get that experience? So it's kind of twofold here. It's treat bring those product principles into the role that you're doing. And then the thing that you're working on, whatever the project is, apply those product principles you're learning to that thing and treat that very thing like a product in itself. And when I've said that, I had one person say to me, she was like, I never would have thought about that. Because it's, to be fair, it's not always super obvious, right? Because when you're in those different roles, you're thinking like, okay, I'm in marketing, I have to get this thing out. It can be hard to see that thing as a product. The more you get immersed in the product space, I find the more you'll see things as products in some way, shape, or form.
And tell me to shut up when I need to, but it's, yeah, the two things I've noticed over time is, yeah, everybody wants to know, like, what book should I read? What course should I take? What certification do I need? And those are all good things, right? Like my story started with reading a book. But yeah, it's like, okay, but like go apply those things in whatever context that you're in. Like just get the reps in trying to back up to problems from the ideas. Get reps in trying to map out an opportunity space. Get it's just practicing the discipline is what makes you a better product manager. And then similarly, I found people get stuck when like their business unit or their company or their team, whatever, doesn't operate that way, right? It's like I'm trying to apply it, but they don't care about uh, you know, problems. Like they just want the features shipped. And it's like, that's fine. You can still think about it and arrange it and talk about it with your team that way, even if you're having to present it as still feature factory work. Like it doesn't have to be 100% correct. It's never going to be 100% correct. Like just do what you can to practice it where you are.
That's so true because I came from a company that I wouldn't call them feature factory, but I would say that they were getting a lot of pressure from investors and VCs on getting things out to make them look more powerful for a funding raise. And I think that there was a huge opportunity for us to shift over to a user focused company, like customer obsessed. Like everything we ship needs to be backed by user feedback. And I think that I had to like work my way into applying those principles within the company. And it required me to show, hey, if we asked 30 customers this and 25 of them is like, hell yeah, I'd use that if you shipped it. And then they did. And then the sentiment was great. And then those customers renewed. It required that process to happen in order for them to see what that could be like. And feature factory is great, but then no one uses your feature, then
And it's actually one of the best ways to initiate that kind of like mindset stakeholder change is like start sneaking into stuff that is based in customer needs and problems and stuff alongside the stuff that they just want to get done. And then you come back and you show them the results afterwards. It's like, hey, we shipped all this stuff and it ain't working, but we shipped this thing and people are loving it and engagement's up, activation's up, whatever the metric was. And so you almost use their ammo against them and going like, we spent all this time and look, nothing's happening, but here's this one thing that was really grounded in our customers and it's taken off.
yeah, I love that. So I know that we've talked a little bit about like your coaching and mentoring. You brought that up kind of at the beginning about how you do some coaching and mentoring. So I imagine you've also like mentored people on moving into product as well. So I'm curious if there's any like skills or anything like kind of like we were just talking about that you look for when you're mentoring and coaching for people looking to move into product.
Yeah. And that it's taken two different avenues so far. So one back at that company in Nashville where I moved into product, kind of story got around. We actually had this like mini TED Talk series where I actually gave a talk about, hey, I moved from marketing into product and trying to make that just like okay and safe to think about and talk about. So I had a number of people reach out from that company and or within the company saying, hey, I'm in creative, I'm thinking about product too, or even other disciplines, not product. And so it kind of developed a little bit of a reputation of being someone who would help people transition. I had a marketer on my team that I helped move to be an executive assistant. She's a much better fit for her. But yeah, in general, the patterns and behaviors. I mean, the first thing is being okay not knowing, right? And being okay being an amateur again and making mistakes. Like it's so easy in our careers to, um, you know, you want to continue to improve, obviously, but like you hit this point where it's like, now it's not okay for me to mess up anymore. Like I'm supposed to be really good at what I do. And so there's this, there's a moment where you just gotta like swallow the pride and be like, hey, I'm going back. I'm going to this new area. It's okay to ask a bunch of dumb questions, which is totally a superpower of product, right? Like that kind of like curiosity and not know, starting from a place of I don't know is like one of the hallmarks of a good product manager. And so just taking that from not applying it to the work, but just yourself, like, hey, it's okay. I don't know. I'm going to learn. I'm going to make mistakes. And then right alongside that is just being super curious, right? Like I want to figure this stuff out. I know I don't know it. And we already talked about it a little bit, like willing to just try to apply, right? You can't just try to gain the knowledge. You have to try to apply the actual practices. And again, you're going to mess up. You're going to screw it up. You're going to have some awful meetings and some bad Jira tickets and some failed launches, and like that's all fine. Like just be willing to give it a try. That's probably the thing I heard the most from Anna when I was working with her on my transition into product was just like, I just appreciate that we talk about something and the next week you bring back having done it instead of like, we're just still talking about the same thing again. Right. My first, you know, opportunity maps and roadmaps and stuff, they were awful. They're terrible. Uh, but it's just like, hey, I'm learning. It's fine.
It's great. This could be like something you can't answer. Okay. So like it could be something that you're not allowed to answer or they don't
I'm
know how
okay
to
not knowing.
answer. But I would just like ask if like when you have helped people transition into product, is there like anything in particular that you've seen be like that person's got it? Like is there anything that really stands out to you like other than those patterns that you just talked about? Like you're like you
Yeah.
meet with that person and you're like this person could be a product manager versus like maybe that person can't be a product manager.
Yeah. I mean, there's like to take those same skills, maybe a level or two deeper, right? There's like the ability to simultaneously have really strong opinions about what you think and why you think it and be totally open and receptive to counter information, right? I think this is the right thing. We should try this. I'm taking a bet on this, this path, this product, this feature, whatever. But as soon as we start getting real, market feedback, customer feedback, the ability to go like, oh man, I was so wrong. And back to the curiosity, right? It's like, it's not a shameful, like, oh man, I messed up and I was wrong. It's like, ooh, that didn't work. I wonder why. Like leading into the failures to understand them more too. And then I don't know if this is related or not, but the other really important thing that I've seen, if you try to like map where product sits in an organization, right, it touches everything. And so being able to zoom out and connect those dots and go like, okay, if we did this, this is the impact it would have on the sales team. This is the impact it would have on customer success team. This is how we'd have to adapt our marketing. This is how we'd have to change our like understanding how kind of the cascade of decisions that if you do this thing, this is how it impacts the larger organization. Like it's easy to get. You mentioned this a minute ago, right? Like when you're in your other role, it's easy to be heads down, zoomed in on just this thing. With product, you cannot do that.
That's a good point. Found that like talking with generalists is like a really good starting point there because they've touched a lot of departments in their past. And like Santi Brody, we just had Brody on, and Brody has a very generalist background.
Mhm.
And I think like if you've touched all those departments, it's almost like easier for you to see, like zoom out, right? And see where you could touch those because you've experienced them before. So it's interesting that you shared that.
Yeah.
Which is
I mean, a quick anecdote about that. One of the first things I did, this was even before I started having the product decision. This was just something about wanting to understand the other parts of the business. As a marketer, I joined the sales team stand up. I went through sales training. I shadowed sales calls. I actually had like a little like hot desk over in the sales department where I would just sit and just like listen to all their conversations. I used to get in trouble with my marketing director because they'd be like, come back to the marketing floor. And I'm like, but they're talking to the people I'm marketing to. Like I have to learn that. And so yeah, even before I realized it, like just that cross training understanding of what the other teams are doing, how they're working is super valuable.
Andy, I feel like I've been talking forever.
Trevor, I would love to kind of hear. So, we like to ask these types of questions in the podcast every once in a while, but what's on the theme of what surprised you about something? So, when you've been coaching and, training other folks and things like that, has there been anything that you've learned from the mentoring and advising that you've been doing that surprised you the most? Like, did something come up during these sessions or these conversations that
Mm.
you were like, and it was kind of surprising for you?
Yeah. So to tee that up a little bit, so about a year ago, I left a full-time position and started kind of this fractional product engagement, um, where I'm working part-time at different capacities with companies trying to build products. The thing that's been surprising, it probably shouldn't have been. I think I realized like how much of a bubble I was in being in a really good product organization was just how foreign some of these ideas still are to most businesses and companies, right? Most of the ones that I've partnered with so far have followed the old pattern of I had an idea, I spent time and a lot of money building that idea. Now I'm launching that idea and I'm crossing my fingers and I'm hoping that it's working. And now I'm confused and frustrated why it's not. Right. Like literally this week was having a conversation with these guys who've built a very cool app. It does some neat things. And there's no customers, there's no traction in people actually using the thing, even though the features all work. So just that approach of like, all right, yes, things usually start with an idea, but if you don't take the time to back up that idea into what problem it's actually solving and then validate that that problem exists and people want it solved, I think that's a thing even product managers miss is sometimes we'll validate that a problem is real, but it's not real enough that people want it to be solved or will pay for it to be solved, right? Like there's a difference between it exists and it exists in such a way that I need something or someone to do something about it. There's a lot of confirmation bias when we're trying to validate our ideas and our products. And it is just you've got to be ruthless with finding the counterfactuals and digging into, is this actually a thing that people want and will do? And that usually means, will they spend time or money with it? Almost on the other end, you didn't ask this, but I'm going to keep talking. Almost on the other end that I've seen is people scaling their stuff long before they need to. One of my first engagements, we spent really detangling a bunch of the back end. It was essentially a SaaS product, an application. You log in, manage your account, that sort of stuff. And they had built it for like, you know, thousands of users, trying to create all of these connections and automations and stuff. And they had dozens of people in there. And so they just spent so much time and money, and it put a lot of pressure on me because their runway was running out. And it's like, well, you have spent tens of thousands of dollars for people who aren't here yet. So
So can I like interrupt you and ask a follow-up? Is it scaling processes or scaling the product that they were doing? I'm trying to like just clarify.
yep, no, good clarifying question. I mean, it's honestly a little bit of both, but a lot of it was processes. They were
Okay.
trying to automate so much of like how we're going to get sales into the system and how we're going to send that to the supplier and how we're going to notify, dozens of people at a time when everybody buys this at the same moment. And it's like, you get 2 sales a week, maybe. Like you're your account manager can print the email and forward it to the warehouse right now. Like that's fine. You do not need to invest in, this Zapier connection into whatever that, oh gosh, they'd spent so much money. It was frustrating.
I've seen that happen.
Yeah, and I like that you touched on that too, because as product managers, we're always trying to balance the like, okay, yeah, this works now, but like what happens when the future? But while it's good to kind of have that in mind, that's a really prime example of how that can backfire and bite you like really badly by trying to scale at a point where you're really just not ready to scale like that.
Yeah. And the thing that I've actually changed kind of like my startup, pitch to startups is like, I want you to do unscalable things for as long as possible. Because you learn so much about those processes and where the problems are within those processes. Because what they had set up technically worked, but it wasn't helping, the end user, right? Because they had made a bunch of assumptions and they'd gone like, okay, if we just make this automated, it's like, no, do it the hard way. Because you'll hear the complaints, you'll hear the problems, you will find new stuff to fix if you'll do it yourself.
True. I've seen that happen. So you just made me laugh because I come from a startup background where I've seen like, let's solve all the problems that don't exist yet. And it's all
Uh-huh.
process oriented. And then you get a
Yeah,
chief of
right.
staff in there and they're like, what have you done?
Yeah. And I think there's, soapbox on this, so I'll shut up. But it's like, they're easy problems, right? It's like, I know what to do with this. And so it's very tempting to spend time on problems we know the solutions for, even to your point, Megan, like when those aren't actually problems yet. Like there's actually a really big, hairy problem over here that people aren't getting into our application. But instead, we're figuring out, oh, well, once we have hundreds of people a day signing up, we got to make sure we can handle that load. It's like, let's go have that problem. Can we please go have that problem?
That's so true. We do that in real life too. We would rather solve like the dirty floor than something going on at work or whatever, right? Like we would rather solve the easy problem in life than like fix our marriage or whatever, right? Like it's always going to be like something simple instead of something complex that takes time and takes work. So you do that at work too, but you're going to solve something right in front of you that's simple instead of something complex and that takes time and thought and energy.
Dopamine hit, but it's not actually moving. It's not actually moving anything that matters.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think having that transparency and just that I always joke about with people that I chat with, like I'm always like self to self conversations. Having that self to self conversation and digging deep and being real with yourself, like, okay, yes, this is a problem right now. Sure. But there's also this big thing staring at me in the corner. Like
Uh-huh.
challenging yourself to be like, am I actually working on the thing that's gonna move the needle? Or am I just working on things that are gonna make me feel a little more, you know, successful right now.
Yes.
And sometimes, yeah, those little like those little bites need to be figured out to improve some kinks. But ultimately, you need to make sure those big hairy things in the corner looking at you, wondering why they're being neglected, do
Yeah.
get the attention that they need and deserve. And you have to challenge yourself to be like, am I actually doing the needle moving work right now? And I'd love that you brought that up because sometimes that can be hard for us to think about. But I would say it's a worthy challenge to give ourselves often, like reflect on what you're doing and see what it is like, is this thing moving the needle? Okay, maybe, maybe not. You know that thing will. Dig into that a little bit more. It's gonna take some time, it's gonna take some energy, but at least start on it. And then eventually you'll get a lot of ideas, you get a lot of thoughts, and then you'll have something that you can work with. And I do also want to kind of go back to that fractional PM topic here. So fractional product management is everywhere on LinkedIn. Everybody's talking about it, super popular. But I'd love to hear from you, Trevor, the benefits for companies if they engage with fractional PMs and, what that can look like.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, being everywhere is like, I resisted using that language probably for the first 3 or 4 months, just because it's like, I felt like it was so like buzzworthy. But no, what I found specifically in coming home to Mississippi, and I mentioned earlier of like this being kind of a foreign concept. Like I'm mostly having to educate companies on what product management is, much less fractional product management. Most people are like, oh, so IT work, or I still get like, that sounds like marketing. But no, I mean, the benefits are, especially if it's a company, well, there's two kind of use cases, right? There's the company that doesn't have product expertise on staff. And so there's some instances where I come in, I'm the only person with that skill set, that experience. And aside from bringing that experience, the benefits are, it's a part-time engagement. It's a cost saver for them. Their options are they could spend a lot of money and hire a full-time experienced PM. They could try to save some money and hire a junior PM or someone wanting to move into product management, but then they're running the risk of like, okay, do these people, do they understand it? Are they going to do a good job? And they don't have anybody on staff to train them up, to coach them up, right? And so they're kind of stuck there. So the benefit is, yeah, you get the product expertise without the overhead, without the benefits, where it's a project engagement or time-based engagement. They know how much money they're going to spend up front, and then hopefully, when I do my job well, there's a lot of value in it for them that's well in excess of what they've paid me, and they can choose like, okay, do we want to keep doing this? Do we want to like try to get ready to hire somebody? I've helped some people like try to establish product roles, product departments. But then the other one, another use case that I honestly didn't think about until I got into it was larger companies who have product organizations that have roles that they haven't been able to fill yet. And so I'm working with a one larger company who they've had a product role open for nearly a year, and they just haven't found that right person yet. And their product, notably so, started losing, traction. They weren't working on it. They weren't improving it. They'd squash bugs every now and then if it was just a straight up technical thing that an engineer could handle. So I'm coming in almost as a a bridge between two permanent employees, just to kind of keep the product moving forward in the meantime.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And to that note, I actually had a really good experience with fractional product help in my last company. So I was in a PM role, and I kind of knew that I wanted to get my skills leveled up. I was the only PM though. So I was like, okay, I want to get in, I want to really just dig deep, hone my craft. I'm ready. Like, let's go. And what they had done actually is they had hired fractional help from a product perspective to just help us get to that next level, because yes, I wanted to level up as well, but obviously the company did too, and we saw an opportunity for like, all right, let's dig deep into some things. And one of the things that my CEO had done is she brought in someone she worked with in the past company to be like, all right, we've got, very eager PM over here wanting to learn more and dig in, and we've got some big goals we want to accomplish. So they hired fractional help. And I will say that was honestly one of the best experiences in my career, was having someone that had just been, she has like over 30,000 hours in product. Like, just having someone that has been in the space for a long time, knew her stuff, just so ready to help and like have me think differently, have me think more on the different like facets of product management and challenge me in such a way. It was forever a great experience. Shout out to Erica Jenkins. She is awesome. She's on LinkedIn, so folks connect with her. But yeah, it was a really good experience. So I think that's also another benefit too. It's like people can have, like, companies might see like maybe they want that junior PM because they're having someone transition into that role. So they want to support in-house growth, which is fantastic. I'm a huge advocate for that. But also maybe they realize like, we want to foster your career development. We also have some big goals we want to get to, and maybe that fractional help can come in and just get some things going. And it's kind of, get two birds with one stone situation. You're building up your current team, building up your product, and helping the business get to that next level. So that's another use case that I've seen lived truthfully. And that was really great. And I'm totally on board with that as well. And so another question I have to follow up on that is, what are some actionable things that you would, advise PMs or PM leaders on taking for those that are considering getting into fractional work?
Yeah, the way I started is it started as part-time work in addition to my full-time job, right? So like making sure you build up enough of a client base where you can actually make that jump. And what that looked like, obviously, was like nights and weekends, right? Not normal working hours. I had a full-time job at the time. And so that looked a lot more like um, discovery work and road mapping more than actually building out the features. Because of my schedule, I wasn't working synchronously with the engineering team or whatever. So it's like they just wanted some strategy help Some like, where should we take this? Where can we go? What are the problems kind of thing? And so it almost started as like product strategy, fractional work. And then that got to a point, I did that really what started, I did that for two different clients, working with them at the same time. And then, just serendipitously, they both said, this is great. We want to do all this stuff. We don't know how to do this. Can you help us like actually execute on these things? And then that opened the opportunity to say, yes, I can, but that's going to take more time, and more time's going to take more money. And so it's kind of stair stepping into once you need like the actual hands-on interfacing with, the engineers, um, you've got to step up my availability. That needs to be during the day, and then I basically just reverse engineer. Okay, this is what I get paid in my full-time position. Between these two clients, what could I make work on a hourly rate, project-based rate? And then the non-product side of that is, I mean, you become a business owner the moment you decide to do that. And so then it is business development. So my full-time role is the clients I'm working with, and my part-time role is who are the next clients that I'm working with. And it's getting really comfortable marketing yourself. So, hey, thanks for letting me on your podcast, and posting on LinkedIn, and going to chamber events and networking events, and just getting the word out as to like what you do, how it can help educate, people within your sphere of influence that you do this. You've got to get really comfortable promoting yourself, which is something that was not easy for me.
Yeah. Yeah, we hear that a lot too, especially from job seekers. The common theme in this podcast was getting out there, promoting yourself in some way, shape, or form, getting eyeballs on your profile, on your work, things like that. It's not easy. It doesn't come naturally for a lot of people, but it's again, we're the adventure. Start small. And like Meg said in one of our episodes, we're all silly on LinkedIn. We don't know what we're doing, but we're all starting from somewhere and just going with it. I do have another follow-up question to that point. When you were like, let's pretend, you have a product manager coming to you, they're in a full-time role and they want to make the leap into fractional work. What were some things that you did or you would advise that PM on helping just get those initial clients? Because I think that might be one of the things that they're not sure how to go about, is like they know they need to get more clients and build up that clientele in a lot of cases, but they don't really know how to get to that, like get that first step done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's different ways you can do it, honestly. But I think the thing that I would think a lot about, the thing that's been helpful for me, is getting clear as to what kind of work do I want to do? What kind of companies do I want to do the work for? I mean, and it becomes the same as a job search at that point, right? Like, let me narrow down my ideal customer, and then you're back to the actual steps to how do I get in front of those people? I mean, we all connected via LinkedIn, right? It's like, do I know anybody that works at these places? Do I know anybody who knows anybody that works at these places? Most opportunities, this has absolutely been true for me, most opportunities come from people that you know. They're not, it's hard enough to get a real job, hard enough to get a full-time job, just like blank applying to job postings. It is that much harder to get fractional work. So what it takes is you telling enough people what you're doing and what you're looking for, to find someone who goes like, oh, well, I know so-and-so over at company B, and I think you might, let me introduce you to them. And being comfortable asking for those things, right? Like every chamber event that I've gone to, there's this monthly networking thing. Every conversation ends with, who do you know that I need to know? Just like, help me expand that network, learn. And people, they don't think about it immediately, usually when you're first talking about it. But the more repetitions, it's like, oh yeah, actually I do. I'm in a small group with so-and-so, or I played golf with whoever, and they're actually talking about how they're having trouble with this. It's like, well, that's actually, I can help with that. Could you introduce me? Would you mind? But I don't know. It's not as concrete and direct as some other frameworks, but I mean, it's just back to asking questions and applying it, hustling it. And then obviously your existing network, right? Like, make sure people know that you're interested in doing this. The opportunities do not, just fall out of lap, fall in the sky into your lap. Not a lot of people posting on LinkedIn like, hey, we're looking for a fractional somebody right now. Like that, one of my longest clients came from me simply talking about it on LinkedIn, and we had met years ago from that company in Nashville, and he reached out and was like, "Hey, we've actually been trying to hire a product manager. Haven't been able to. Would you step in the meantime?" Yeah, absolutely.
Do you ever look for roles that have been like posted for 6 months or something? And they're like, hey, like, I know you haven't been able to hire someone. I'm a fractional PM. Can I help you? Or like, is that something that you look for? Is that something that I've heard that some fractional people do, but not necessarily like in the PM space, more in the marketing space?
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, like, is that something that stands out to you? Because it seems like you've shared that theme a couple of times that like people haven't been able to hire. And so I'm just curious.
Yeah. I definitely look for open positions at companies I'm interested in. I'll say to date, I have not heard back on cold reaching out to any of this. Or if I have, it's been thank you, but we're not interested in part time. Like, well, this is a full time position. We're not interested. Every single one of my opportunities has come from directly from someone I know or someone I know who knows somebody.
That makes sense. Anything else you want to talk about there, Santi?
I could keep going, but no, I think that covered the main things I wanted to get out of just kind of, what how people can get started on that front. So you shared some really excellent insights. Thank you for that.
Cool. The last thing I wanted to make sure we bring up is I know we've talked a little bit about your work in Mississippi, and I just would like for you to share that on the podcast if you're up for it. And I know you keep trying to limit yourself, but we have plenty of time. So share anything that you want about the work that you're doing there. And I think our listeners would love to hear it.
Yeah. So originally from Mississippi, we've been gone for 15 so years. We just moved back, and yeah, I mean, I just have this belief and this passion for there's totally untapped potential, specifically in Mississippi, but I think this applies many other places to get people this kind of information of like how you build a successful digital product that could spur crazy amounts of economic growth and opportunities here in the state. I mean, a quick aside, before I got into digital marketing and product management, I was in economic development. So that's like my background. And so I just see it as this marriage of the two things where specifically in Mississippi, when we talk about economic opportunities, it's still a little, we need a big investment. We need a big manufacturer to open up, an automobile plant, right? Or we talk about service industry stuff, retail, restaurants, and those things are great. I want more of those too, but they're capital intensive, right? You've got to get the facilities, the retail space, the equipment. You got to get all that in place before you can start serving food or building cars or whatever, making widgets, whatever the thing is. And the beauty of digital products is it's flipped that model on its head. And with 20, $40 a month subscription to Chat GPT, Figma, and Lovable, like I could build a product this afternoon, and backing out of those numbers, it cost me $12, cost me $2, right? And so I have this incredible passion for like, just people don't realize that's an option. Like they don't understand that that's a way that you can build a business. People are incredibly good at solving problems for themselves. And so if we can like get them to realize that if you're solving a problem, you've probably got a business idea. And so I'm working with a lot of economic development organizations here. I'm trying to get into more of our colleges and university because there's still this disconnect between business school and engineering school. And we're not connecting those two things together with product principles and just letting people know this is a viable path. It's a career path, but it's also an entrepreneur path if you want to start something. So I'm working with a few accelerators in the state, mentoring those startups, and hopefully putting together some coursework, maybe a certification course, something like that. It's funny, we talk about you don't need a certification course, but it's specifically to teach the teachers, right? It is the economic development organizations who, when they're trying to help a small business, it's still that old model of like, do your market research, go raise a bunch of money, build the thing. And I'm trying to flip that mindset here.
I think that's great. I agree with you that it really a lot of the tools that we have today, especially with like the age of AI, it really has opened up the door for us all to be entrepreneurs. Like you have to have a little bit of maybe coaching or ability to kind of get in there and give it a try. And I think a lot of it is also confidence, right? Because like we're kind of taught that you need an engineer or you need this person to help you build that or you need capital just like you said. But I think if the confidence can be built up and we can be shown the capabilities that are brought to us by these tools, that really does open doors. And it sounds like that's something that you're helping with too, is just building up confidence in people. And I
Yeah.
think like that trickles down, right? Like if I was Santi didn't know those things and I went and showed Santi, Santi might tell someone else. And I
Yeah.
think like that's something that it sounds like you're doing, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. The way I've mapped it out is like there has to be simply awareness that this is a possibility. And then you've got to generate the interest in like, okay, I know that's possible. Maybe I want to do that. And then it's building up like you said, confidence, the word I've used is like capabilities, right? Like, can you actually do those things? So two of the organizations that I've partnered with, there's a fantastic nonprofit in Jackson, Mississippi called the Bean Path, where all they're doing is trying to teach tech literacy. They have a makerspace, which is really great, but they have these courses for free. Like you just wrapped up one where it's like, hey, you want to come learn Python? Like, just show up and someone will teach you Python. And then we also have the Mississippi Coding Academies, which is again totally free for anybody who wants to learn how to program. There's a lot of high school and college students, but there's a lot of transitional, midlife people in there as well. I'm teaching a course with them in April, less than a month, on like agile and lean development practices, because still kind of back to the College of Business and College of Engineering separation. A lot of the engineers here are still the like, tell me what to build and I'll go build it. Right. And if you're spending the time to actually learn how to program, like we've got to get out in front of them and go like, no, you are the problem solvers. Like you should be at the forefront of figuring out what needs to be built, not just taking the orders. So yeah, there's a lot of education, a lot of, to your point, just like unlocking the like, oh, I didn't even know that was possible. And then hopefully it'll spread from there.
Yep. Yep. We don't know what we don't know. So that's that's the gist of it. That's amazing. I love how much you give back to the product community and just to the community in general. That's why we started this podcast too, because we know there's so many great things out there that can be done, and now more than ever it's more accessible. So I am, for one, a huge fan of your work. Way to go.
I just had like one follow up to that. Is there anything that you might recommend that others do if they were trying to start like a similar motion, or I'm probably using the wrong word, in their local community to try to like reach out more or teach more or anything like that?
Yeah. The good news was I was pleasantly surprised at how many things were already happening that I had no idea about in Mississippi. The problem that I identified in that is like there were all these pockets that were doing these little things and they weren't connected. They weren't leveraging each other, right? Jackson State University has a pitch competition for startup ideas, as the Bean Path, and they're literally maybe 3 miles away from each other. Right there. Yesterday, I was down on the coast, and the University of Southern Mississippi has an executive education course for what you were just talking about. It was 4 hours of like, come learn how to use all these generative AI tools. And it was great. It was fantastic. And there were 11 people there. Right. And so it's just like, these things are happening. And so my advice to your question is like, right, first do your research, find the bright spots that already exist. And then if you just attach yourself to those and say, hey, I want to help you promote the thing that you're doing, people welcome help. You know, it doesn't take a lot of arm twisting to say, like, I want to help get more people into your pitch competition, into your course, into your maker space, right? So I volunteered with the Bean Path before I started working with them. Any and all conferences and network events, yeah, just showing up and saying, uh, it's the same customer centric approach as product, right? It's like, it's not for me. I'm not doing this to try to build my business. That's an outcome, right? That's a side effect. That's nice. But it all starts with like, oh, that's really cool that you're doing that. Like, how can I help? What do you need? Um, and then it's back to connecting the dots. Here's this thing, here's that thing, here's that thing. Do y'all know each other? Have y'all talked to each other? Yeah. So it really is. It's just a game of talking to people and identifying where the connections that you can, either facilitate or the things that you can take on. And then the opportunities start coming from.
Great advice. I know we're at time, so I just want to be mindful. Do you have a hard stop?
No, I don't.
Cool. Santi, then that's all for our questions. So that means you can ask your follow-up question.
It's my favorite question of every episode. It just tells me so much. But Trevor, what's your most controversial food opinion?
I spent more time thinking about this question than any of the questions that y'all sent me for the interviews. And I'm still a little worried that I don't have a good answer. I will go on record and say eggs and ketchup is a hard no. Like, that's wrong. So at least you're right that it's controversial. You probably put ketchup on your steak too, and then we can't be friends.
Okay, I'm not a monster. I'm not a monster here, but I like my steak well done.
Yeah. No, I'll go, I've talked a lot about Mississippi, so I'll stick to my Southern roots. One of my absolute favorite meals is a dirt poor Delta meal. Give me some fried chicken livers and collard greens any day of the week. Any day. There's worse things I could pick. I try to kind of go middle of the ground so I don't give Mississippi too bad of a reputation. We already got a bad enough one.
I'll say this though. I've never tried chicken liver. So I can't give you a proper ew because I haven't tried it. It just sounds weird. Collard greens are a hard no for me. A hard no. But I am just reacting to the sound of the word liver. I will say I've never tried chicken liver.
That's fair. That's fair.
Most people won't try it.
Yeah.
Really? Really? Most people won't try it just because it's chicken liver?
Yeah. The idea of it is I don't like it.
See, I want to say that no, I'd try it, but I know me and I know what I'm like. I'm not even a picky eater, but there's just certain things where I'm like,
right. Well,
I
that was
try
my
it.
problem with this question. That was my problem with this question. It's I eat everything. I literally one of my nicknames at the company in Nashville was garbage disposal because we'd have lunch and then whatever anybody didn't eat, they knew they could give it to me.
I actually love that though, because it makes me feel a little bit better about myself because my mother-in-law likes to joke. She'll be like, Santa, you'd eat poop if it was seasoned right.
Trevor, do you like mayonnaise?
Conditionally. I'm not going to spoon it out of a jar and eat it, right? And it doesn't go on everything that people put it on, but there are a few exceptions. So I spent 6 years in New Orleans, and a roast beef sandwich, specifically a roast beef po' boy, has to have mayo on it.
Interesting.
Megan's judging her a little bit right now because she loves me.
Love mayonnaise. I'll eat mayonnaise on anything. When one of our guests said she won't eat mayonnaise on a hamburger, I was like, are you kidding me right now? I can't eat a hamburger without mayonnaise or it's dry.
No, I'm going with friend on that. Put mustard on a hamburger, fine. Ketchup, maybe. Mayonnaise, no thank you. Mayonnaise based sauces, sure. You smash burger, it's got a mayonnaise base, but then you put a bunch of other stuff in there. That's fine. But just straight mayonnaise, no thanks.
I have to ask though, because she's raised a flag for me. You said for the hamburger, mayonnaise, no. Mustard, sure. Ketchup, maybe. Those are the three main things on a burger.
It depends on what kind of burger I'm making. This could be a whole other podcast episode. But I mean, cheese and pickles are always on there. That's a given. Cheese, pickle, mustard. I'm good with that. If you want to go, lettuce, tomato, that's fine. I think the thing with multiple condiments, they start competing too much, right? So it's I don't like that mustard, mayonnaise, ketchup all at the same time effect.
That's fair. Last question. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, a hot dog is a taco.
Sorry, say that again for the listeners.
A hot dog is a taco.
Oh my God. I'm just going to post a snippet just of that. A hot dog is a taco.
You want me to really blow your mind? Cereal is soup.
Oh, man.
We went there today, folks.
Man, I think we should just have a podcast of just talking about controversial food because I feel like we could talk about that stuff all day long.
You know what we actually should do is bring all the guests back from season 1, get us all on a call, and everyone has to share
battle.
their controversial food opinion again, and then we need to debate.
I'm really curious if anyone agrees with your taco opinion. Very curious if anyone agrees with that opinion. However, the rest of this episode was great. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on. I forgot to ask you if there was anything that we didn't get a chance to ask you during our questions that you wanted to share, because usually we try to give you an opportunity to share anything that we missed or anything that you wanted to sign off with or anything like that. So was there anything that we missed there?
No, I would just say thank y'all so much for offering up the platform. Let me come in here and talk about the stuff going on in Mississippi. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening here. You can absolutely build it here. And that being said, I'll take advantage and go, I don't exclusively work with companies in Mississippi. So if there are people out there that are looking for any product coaching or fractional help, you can reach out on LinkedIn, real active there.
Do you have a website, or is it just, do you typically get contact just through LinkedIn?
I own a website that has not been fully built yet. That is on my personal roadmap. Back to the challenges of fractional work is client work usually comes before my own work. And so all that stuff has taken longer than it should. But hopefully, maybe this will be a good excuse. I need to get Delta Product Group, a website built and launched.
Fair. Okay, cool. When we post the episode, we'll make sure to put your LinkedIn profile and like put a blurb that that's the where people can contact you. Just wanted to make sure that we didn't need to also include your website, or should it point people to your website instead?
LinkedIn's fine for now.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was really great to have you. Anything, Santi, that you want to sign off with?
No, that was great. This was actually one of the episodes I was the most quiet in because there were just so many insights coming out and I was just absorbing all of it. Thank you so much. This was phenomenal.
Yeah,
great.
Thank y'all. I had a blast.